everybody, it's Stephen here for this week's episode of the Idiot Quilter, and it is episode number 362 for June the 30th, 2026, and June is done. And we move into summer proper, as I like to call it, July and August. And before we know it, that'll be over with too. And today, the weather's not looking all that good where I am right at this moment when I'm recording, which is about 20 to 7 on Tuesday morning. Because it's dark outside. It should be light, but it's dark. It's warm. It's 20 degrees C and with a high of 31. So it is going to be hot. We're moving into a heat wave, I think, according to the weather people anyways. And we're moving into thunderstorms. And I already heard a rumble and it is really dark outside. So yeah, if I go down, well, you won't know it. I'll just pick up from here. I was going to say if my power goes off, but the laptop's on a battery backup. So is the modem. Probably be okay. Anyways, let's take a look at what I've been working on lately. And you know, I don't feel like I've gotten a whole lot accomplished. I got some things accomplished, but I mentioned yesterday on my vlog, which was live, by the way, and if you missed it, the next live Monday morning coffee with Stephen will be whatever the last Monday of July is. That'll be the next one. That could possibly be the long weekend here in Canada too. Not that that's going to matter much. But anyways, yeah, where was I going with that? Yeah, I talked yesterday about being a little overwhelmed. My own fault. Too many projects. We'll carry on. Today I'm thinking of getting a handle on that. And the way I get a handle on things is I make lists and schedules. So that helps. I never stick to them, but it makes me feel like I'm getting something done. Anyways, enough babbling. Let's take a look at the Japanese quilt so far. So here it is. Now you can see I've started putting sashing on it, and I put the first 2 rows together because I wanted to see what that was going to look like. And I think it's going to look great. Maybe you don't, but I don't care whether you like it or not. It's my quilt. Yeah, okay. No, I do like this. That sashing pieces are also some of the Japanese fabric I bought when I was over in Japan, and I like it. I think it works. I was debating whether to put sashing on this or not, but I think there would have been too much negative space if I had done that. I'd have big white squares and kind of a thing there. And sure, those of you that are definitely into long arm quilting, you'd say, ooh, that is potential for quilting. Yes, it would be, but you know me, I'm not that much into doing the quilting part. But it does bring up an interesting question about this. I'll come back to that in a moment because I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But I intend to use the sashing fabric as a border, an inner border all the way around the quilt. And then I have some other fabric I haven't used yet that is Japanese that I'm thinking might look good as a little wider border all the way around. And then this will be done. So my plan is today to get another row of this quilt done as far as the sashing is concerned, because as I said earlier, I want to move on to some of my other projects as well. And one of those projects, oh, before I leave here, I was going to mention about quilting this. In the back of my head, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to quilt this. I don't want to do an edge-to-edge design, I don't think, because that means I will go over top of my applique fans and my embroidered pieces. And going over top the applique fans probably wouldn't be that big a deal. I'll probably use a very light colored thread so that it just sort of melts into the background of the quilt itself and not take away from the blocks. But when you go over top of very densely embroidered, and these designs in this quilt are very densely embroidered, there could be some problems. Yeah, the machine might bounce a little bit, break thread, whatever. So this means I may have to do some form of custom quilting. And that would be something that maybe will go around the center squares. would mean I'd have to set up the machine for each one of those blocks, however I do it, and possibly do something separate in the sashing and in the borders. This is getting complicated. I have played with those kind of features on my Lucy in the computer program. And yes, if I was a good free motion quilter, I would have no problem, doing whatever I wanted that way instead of having to set up a computer to do it. And somebody's going to say, well, why don't you let Walter do it? Well, I did sort of talk about it with Walter, but he nor I are comfortable yet with his skill level to go for something like this. He actually hasn't been doing any free motion quilting since we got back from Japan. Getting a little worried about that because, if you're not, doing it on a regular basis, you may lose some of your muscle memory. We'll see how that works. He's been busy doing other things around the house, gardening season, and he's always puttering about with that. And I don't know what else he does in the day. He stares at a computer all the time. He's doing something. I know that. But whatever. But I had learned a long time ago in our relationship, you don't create a honey-do list, okay? And so I'm not doing that, and never have. And I don't bother him. When he wants to get something done or do something, he will do it on his own time and it'll get done. It's not for me to, schedule his life for him. I certainly wouldn't appreciate being scheduled, and I know he definitely doesn't. So these things will get done and we'll return to those. Okay, so the other project I'm working on right now, it's an in the hoop project. I'm starting to think Christmas. Yes. Can you do this too soon? No. I don't know how many things I'm going to make for Christmas as gifts. I haven't planned that far ahead yet. Quite frankly, I am debating whether I'm going to make as many things as gifts, for other people I give gifts to every year. And to be honest, I love giving gifts, but it would be nice if some of these people you give gifts to gave you a gift. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to say any more about that because, yeah. Anyways, I did have in mind someone for this when it gets done, if I like it well enough. And, we'll see how this works out. But this is coming along. A lot of pieces in it, like a lot of the same piece. You need 5 of these hollies, and which I've got done now, and I need 8 of these. They call these elbows, but they're part of the design. And if you can bear with me for just a second, let me go here. I will find you a picture of what the final quilt is to look like. Yeah, here we go. So this was a design from Sweet Pea, and I bought it when it was on sale. It's no longer on sale, as I see. I think I got it for half price. And this is what the final look will be. And of course, you can use any colors you'd like with it. Here's a variation that somebody has done, and a couple of others. So I think it's a very pretty table runner. More here. I'm leaning more to this style right at the moment. I may make a couple of these if it turns out okay. The pieces are fairly easy to get to stitch out. And yeah, actually too, you could make these into like a pot holder kind of thing or whatever. Like these center pieces here would make nice, small table toppers or pot holders. So there's lots of versatility here in what you could do. Now it looks like this one, they made matching, I don't know if those are supposed to be napkins. I'm not really sure. I don't think it would work as napkins very well because these are too stiff. Not sure what they've done here, but that's kind of interesting, the design that they've done with it, the way they've taken it. So, you just use your imagination, and that's always a good thing. Oh, here's what they did. Oh, they made them into a cutlery holder. Well, that's kind of cute. I don't use cutlery holders usually, but kind of a nice, it might make a nice gift with those along with it. I'll have to think about that. But anyways, yeah, this is on Sweet Pea. As I said, I got it on sale way back weeks ago, months ago actually. They had a big sale, and but if you're interested in it and you want to get the design, I'll put the link to this page in the show notes, and away you go. Okay, so do I have any other projects? Oh, well, a couple of things I want to talk about here on projects. Okay, people have been asking me, how's the Alaska quilt going? It's not. It's on shutdown. It's in timeout. Yeah. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. I went down, saw Donna at Ultimate Sewing. She showed me some tips and tricks, which are very, very helpful. And I've been watching a few other things. I just haven't tried those tips and tricks yet to see if it'll make my life easier. And also because I have a feeling I'm going to have to buy more fabric. Not that that's a problem for me. And start from scratch again with it. Maybe. Because I think I have too many of the blocks I've already made, which is kind of a shame, that just aren't up to my standard. I cut off points, and I hate that. If I cut off a point, it drives me mental. So yeah, I may come back to it at some point, but right now it's in time out. And of course, the Art East quilt, second star to the right. I'm up to date, but tomorrow is July the 1st, and that's the beginning of the next block, and I haven't cut any stuff out yet for it. I mean, I have a whole month, but it goes by fast. So I am going to sit down with it today, and I'm going to see if there's a way that I can cut pieces and sew things together kind of at the same time to alleviate the tedium of cutting all the little pieces out at once. Now, this may not work. I have an idea in my head, and I'm not going to say that's going to make things more efficient, but it might keep my sanity a little better. That's what I'm aiming for, keeping my sanity on this one together. This is a challenge, a real challenge for me. It's not that it is a hard pattern. It's just I don't like cutting fabric, and I especially don't like working with small pieces. And what's keeping me going? Knowing that the end product will be worth it. Okay? So I've got to find a strategy that will work for me and probably only work for only me. But if it gets me through this with a less pain, sort of, then yeah. Because otherwise I am tempted to abandon it. And, you know, that just spells big loser if I do that in my mind. So we'll carry on with it. We'll carry on with it, and I'll keep you up to date on my progress. Okay, so that's what I've been working on. So what's coming up? Well, two things, of course. Wednesdays. Wednesdays is always, sorry, oh, did you see that? Lights just went out. We just had a power bump. Let me get these ones back on. I knew this was going to happen. Okay. So, all right, we're back here. Hopefully, I didn't get a glitch in my recording. Anyways, what was I trying to do? I'm all over the place now. It's got me all excited. A thunderstorm. Not really. I'm not that fond of thunderstorms. Okay, so as I was saying, sewing with me tomorrow, Wednesday, June the 1st. That is Canada Day, by the way. And there may be some of the Canadians out there wondering if I was going to do my sew day. Yeah. Why? Everything's closed. What was I going to do? And they're actually predicting what's happening right now is going to happen tomorrow, too. Thunderstorm, rain. So, good day to sew, probably. That is if the power doesn't go out. And I'm hearing rumbles even closer now. I don't know if you can hear that. Probably not. But yeah, I may glitch here in a minute. Okay, so before that happens, sewing with me tomorrow starts at 9 a.m. Eastern, ends at 4 p.m. Eastern. I hope you can join us. Or all the regulars and everybody else. Everybody is welcome. Okay, so that takes me to comments of the week. Well, I don't really have any comments of the week, but I want to talk about comments. out of all of my videos that I put up every week, usually this one gets the most comments. Many of the comments are very, very supportive and helpful, things like that. But there are other types of comments that, yeah. So I don't want you to think I'm picking on anyone in particular, because I'm not. And I don't want anybody to take what I'm about to say personal, as a personal attack or anything like that. I do appreciate your comments, but there are comment types. And I thought I'd kind of isolate the 6 types of comments that I get and just talk a little bit about them. And more or less, and this applies to me too, because things trigger us, right? And we want to write a comment. I have found that I seldom write a comment on someone else's YouTube channel unless it's something I very strongly feel about. And even then, it should be something that's more positive than negative, because I know how much work and effort a content creator puts into their channel. And nothing slices you up than somebody's nasty little comment. Yes, you may have had 100 wonderful comments praising what you have done, saying you're a wonderful person and all of that, and they love you, love you, love you. But you get that one. And that's the one you focus on. And that's just human nature. So I try not to. As much as there are some content out there that really irks me, but I have to hold back. I keep saying in my little mantra in my head, pick the mountain you want to die on, pick the mountain you want to die on. I use that on a daily basis in a lot of things. But anyways, here are what the kind of comments I have noticed on my own channel, and I've kind of classified them. There's the thank you comments, really appreciate what you've done type of comments, and keep those ones coming, okay? Like what I just said. As content creators, those help spur us on, help us make us feel that we're wanted, that our content is wanted, that people appreciate what we do. I don't want you blowing smoke up my ass though. Okay? I can tell the difference between a sincere thank you and a tongue-in-cheek sort of thank you kind of comment. All right? I don't want, if somebody tells you you're wonderful too many times, you start to question their sincerity. So yeah, but I want you to know that when you find something that's really helped you out, please let me know that, that you got something from that. I've had several of you reach out to me and tell me that you really appreciated my binding tutorial segment that I had included in one of these. That wasn't something I was going to do because I just assumed everybody, knows how to bind. And top of it all, there are all kinds of tutorials on YouTube for binding a quilt, how I learned. But people were bugging me, so I showed what I do. And one person wrote a comment, said in 20 years, she'd never understood how to do binding properly and she hated it. And then she saw my video and I removed all of her fear factor. Well, that made me feel really good. I didn't think it was anything spectacular or special, but apparently it helped that person out. And so, yeah. So I appreciate that kind of comment that says to me that what I'm doing is helping you out, because that's really one of the foundations of my mission statement here. Okay. Now, there are other comments, though, that give helpful advice. Now, these are welcomed when they're delivered in a constructive and positive manner. But sometimes the helpful advice is more like, yeah, well, you should have done it this way. Just saying. That might have made things a little better for you. Just saying. What it's saying is the person who wrote the comment feels that they are far superior to me. And they could be. Yeah, I don't know everything about quilting. If I was a professional, if I was an expert, I'd have a wall full of ribbons. Well, that is if I ever entered a quilt show. But you know what I mean? But there's always those ones out there that just have to give you that extra little help. Now, I appreciate comments that come in and give me some inspiration or let me see something I'm working on with a different set of eyes. Those are great. Those are what I call constructive. So, if a person wants to be constructive and giving me advice, then you need to think about your wording because sometimes it comes off as arrogance. Um, and then there's I didn't watch the whole thing, but I made a comment anyways when I saw the rest kind of comments. Okay, people jump the gun. You know that my videos, and this is pretty obvious here, are unscripted. I'm not reading anything here. I have point form notes to look at to keep me on track. And I need to be kept on track because I go off track very easy, squirrel. But I don't have a script written out. It's what I'm going to say comes from here and goes right out the mouth. Yeah, and sometimes I trip up. Sometimes I do make mistakes. There's a lot of technology sitting in front of me right now that you can't see. I'm pushing buttons. When I look over this way, I'm pushing a button to get something else up on another screen that you're going to see, like the pictures of fabric or whatever, my projects and things I put up there. Sometimes I mess up. I forget to hit a button. Or there's something I have left out in what I wanted to explain to you, but I remembered it a little later on in the video. Now, yeah, I could stop the video. I could go back. I could insert that. I could do a chop here and a chop there with it. But that's time. And I don't want to waste my time on things like that. There's other things I'd rather do than edit. Maybe you don't agree with me. You think I should be more editing. It should be more professional. You get what you get. This is me. Okay? I am not like some creators out there where, you see the cut halfway through every sentence they say. And those people are scripted and those people are editing heavily. Now, I'm not saying I have anything against scripting or editing heavily. It's just not my style. So, yeah. So, before you make a comment where you think I made a mistake or I left something out, wait till you get to the end of the video. Then, if it hasn't been corrected within the body of the video by the time you get to the end, please let me know what it is. Now there's the look at me comments. These are the people who write comments that strongly suggest they know everything. I've been there, done that, better than you, got a t-shirt for it, and comments. There are a lot of needy people in the world, and they need to be seen. And, that's why, one, that I encourage people to send me a picture of a project they have done so I can feature it here on the Idiot Quilter, to give you a showcase, to show off what you've done. Because after we've created something that we're very proud of, we do want to share it and show it. And that is perfectly all right. In our community, the quilting community is really good at doing that. I mean, we have quilt shows and things like that, but there are ones who, I don't know, they always have to feel they know more than the content creator and they can do it better. Well, my question is that may be absolutely true. Why don't you put it up on your channel? Oh, don't have one. Ah, I see. So, now sometimes those comments are meant just as reassurance and support. Yeah, I've been there and done that. But a lot of the time, some of those types of comments, the way they're worded, is more like, look at me, see me, me. As I've said before, this channel is all about me. So see me. kind of thing. I don't know if you get the point of that or not. Then there's the one word comments, or what I call the what are you talking about comment. When you write a comment to me, it is best to set the context from the video. I will tell you that I don't remember what's in my videos. I don't. I make 4 videos minimum a week. Once I'm done recording this one today, I will forget half the stuff that I put in here. And it's people think that they're having a conversation with me as if we're in the same room together. That would be different. I would hope that I would remember what we were talking about at that point. But once it's up here and it's been a few days later, my mind isn't on this. My mind is on something else completely. And so you make a comment, a 1 or 2 word comment, and I don't know what you're talking about. So you need to set up the context for it. Give me some background information that has led to this comment that you have made. And 1 word comments, sometimes I don't know what it is. What so why'd you say? Like, I agree. With what? I have said a lot of things on here. What do you agree with? I don't know. Everything or nothing. I don't know. So that's what I mean, those kind of comments. Also, I appreciate you saying hello. That's always nice. But sometimes I'm wondering if you realize when you have written that comment that I'm not live at that point, I'm a recording when you make that comment. Or if you're just being friendly and nice, that's okay. That's okay. I just put it out there. You do realize this is, except for Stephen and Walter Live, this is pre-recorded. Okay? Just saying. Okay, and then there's the comments about appearance or surroundings, personal comments. I do not get many of these, but I have had them in the past where someone will say, "Oh, you should get a haircut. Oh, that shirt you're wearing doesn't look really good with your complexion." Now you're going to say, people don't write that. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. People can be nasty. Or their eyes are rubbering around my room here, which is fine. It's my backdrop, in a sense. I could get rid of all of that and just blur it all, but I leave it here because my workroom is my workroom. It's where I spend a lot of my time. And yeah, I don't mind you seeing it. And it's usually not much of a mess. So that, and even if it is, I don't care. I mean, a messy workroom, people get upset with messy workrooms if they're on camera. I don't think you should, because that says that the creative process is ongoing in your life. Creativity is messy. So there. But sometimes people will point out something and couple this with the minimal word comment. I don't know what you're talking about. Or, you know, I've had a few people, well, one, say the flashing light behind me is bothersome to them. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I'm sorry. I am not rearranging my room or my decor to please anybody. This is my space. You're a guest in it. Would you want me to walk into your house and look around and go, "Oh, I wouldn't put that vase over there, and I would have changed that cover on that chair over there, and I would have that arrangement over there"? No, you would not. So, you know, people, you are invited into my home, my space. So, yeah. That doesn't happen often, but it has happened in the past. And the personal comments, I don't make fun of you in terms of the way you look. Of course, I can't see you. But, you know, polite people just think those things in their head. They don't say them out loud. So, yeah. Now, I'm not talking just about my channel here. The content creators that I am friends with, that I know, we all have the same thing happen to us. So I just thought maybe you should know about them. I'm not complaining. Keep the comments coming, whatever they are. But maybe sometimes it's best to just stop for a moment, take a pause before you hit that send button or return button when you write a comment. Okay. But if you want to get a comment out of me, here, and I do read all the comments and I try to respond to them all in one way or the other. Many times there's nothing for me to say, but I just want to acknowledge the fact that I have seen your comment. So I will give you a little heart. That means, yeah, I've seen it and I appreciate your comment. But if you've got something you really want me to write a more extensive reply to, then first of all, ask it as a question. Because, you know, questions beg for answers. And so, yeah, when I see a question, I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. Offer constructive advice, as I've already said earlier, because usually that will get a response from me. I'll say something like, that's an idea I had not thought of. And sometimes it'll inspire me to say even more, like, wow, yeah, that is a good idea, and I could do this and I could do that. So that's like constructive advice is always welcome. And make a comment that adds to the general subscriber's knowledge. Remember, the comment section is not just me who sees it. Everybody can see it. And I don't know how many people actually read the comments under a video. But many of you do. So if you're going to write a comment, think about everybody else in our little community here. And will your comment also add to their general knowledge or be helpful to them as well? Because, it's, although I did say it's all about me, I don't know everything. And I do find comments like that add to the knowledge base are excellent, not just for me, but for everybody. Okay, so I hope that gave you a little food for thought. It wasn't specifically about quilting, but it was about the channel. All right, so reviews and demos. Fabric. I did buy some, and I haven't bought any fabric for a while, but I do want to make another Quilt of Valor down the road here in a short amount of time soon, another month or two. I want to get started on it. And I look for some more fabric. And Rhonda's quilts, she had a sale on, an online sale, 35% off. So I checked out what she had in the O Canada fabrics, because these are the ones I like to make my Quilts of Valor out of, and I love them. And she had wide back. That's the one furthest away with the red with the leaves. So I bought 3 meters of that. It was a really good price. It worked out to about $24 a meter, and I need 3 meters for a backing. And this is wide back, by the way, 108 inch. So at $24 a meter, that's a really good price, because usually they're more like over $30 a meter. The rest of these are, some of them, well, the one with the little, the plaid look to it, is that the one that's the, I don't know why I didn't take a picture of it. Oh, I do have a picture of it. Yeah, I bought a panel as well. But before I get to that, this one is from their new line, the O Canada 14 series. This one, they were under O Canada 14, but they've had these ones before, I'm sure, in some of the other series with the maple leaves. But I love them. And so that's what I bought. And then I bought this panel. I love this panel. And I think that's what my next Quilt of Valor will be. I will use my own pattern, the one that I talked about making a quilt around a panel, and use this as my basis for that. And those other fabrics, and I may have to supplement those fabrics with some of the other O Canada fabrics in my stash for that quilt. I haven't decided yet exactly what I'm going to do, but I got the panel to go with the fabric. So yeah, that was my haul there about a week ago. Okay, so last week's videos, well, this week, last week we did Monday morning coffee with Stephen. I talked about all the filament that I bought. I buy almost as much filament as I buy, and filaments for my 3D printers, the plastic, as I do fabric. And this week's Monday morning coffee was alive yesterday. And there's links for that in the show notes below. You will find So Chatty. This week we did something a little different. We talked about AI and what can AI do for quilting, especially in terms of making a pattern. So we did some experiments on that and took you with us on the experiments, and we did it not only for quilting, but we did it for sewing a shirt too as well for Walter, and we discovered some interesting things. So if you haven't seen that yet, the link for it is down below as well. And of course we didn't have anything for Stephen and Walter live this week because we had the annual concert that my great nieces put on. They're very musically talented. I talked about that yesterday on the vlog too. And so the way the timing worked, we just decided to take a little hiatus from Stephen and Walter Live, but we're back this week. So yeah, tune in. Okay. Oh, and do tune into So Chatty this week as well, because we're going to continue with AI, but this time we're going to have a conversation with my Echo. Hope she didn't hear that. Yeah, we're going to talk about what Echo knows about quilting as well, the AI. And I've already done a little experiment with this on my own. It's kind of spooky. Yeah, so that's on So Chatty this week. Okay, so that brings me to subscribers quilt of the week, and this one comes from Pamela Nesler. This week's quilt of the week comes from Pamela Nesler, and Pamela writes, Winding Ways design was cut with AccuQuilt and quilted on my Bernina 770 QE. I watched many YouTube videos to help me through this, just as you did with the double wedding ring design. My biggest frustration was trying so many fabrics together at the points. I love the design, but not sure what to do. I would do it again. Well, it came out beautifully, and this is a fine example of what you can do with an AccuQuilt machine. And I think this really has a really neat look is the word I want, because it almost looks like it's transparent in certain sections of it. And the transparency quilts there about a year ago were all on trend. So this is really beautiful, and I love the quilting that's in it as well. I really think that sets off each of the sections very nicely. So thank you, Pamela, for sharing this with us. And as I've said, I love showing your quilts on here, or your creations. It doesn't have to be a quilt. It can be a bag. It could be whatever you've made that you're proud of. One picture, please. One picture only in JPEG format, and a little blurb about it. No more than 50 words. 50 words or less. Okay, and I'll be happy to feature it here on a future episode. Okay, that takes me to the short tip of the week via YouTube, and this one's kind of interesting. There isn't any speaking in it, but it's pretty much self-evident how it works. And well, here's what I'm talking about. This week's YouTube short tip is actually how to make a really quick bag using a doily, and I think this technique is really cool. This is done somewhere in another part of the world where they don't speak English as their first language, so I'm not sure how you say the title of this particular short, but it doesn't really matter because there is no talking, just music in the background of this video, and it's very clear in the instructions as to what to do. I think this is a really neat idea, and if I can find some old doilies laying around or something, I might give this a try. I do want to try that at some point in time and see what happens. And if I do try it, I'll let you know what my success rate is with it. Okay, so on to my Healing Waters quilt. It's going to be a long one today because I got a little winded there on the comment section. I'm carrying on with my Healing Waters quilt, demo tutorial, whatever you call it. And this week we're looking at the finished top and squaring it up. And this is something people have some difficulty with, is how do you square up a quilt? Well, I'm going to show you how I do it. And it is important to square up a quilt before you bind it. It will save you a lot of heartache. It will keep your binding from going wonky. And it just will give your final product a really nice look. So grab yourself a coffee. This runs about 30 minutes, and I'll insert that video clip in here right now. So I've put the outside top and bottom borders on, and now the quilt top is now finished, and I think it came out great. Now what I need to do is figure out what I'm going to use for a backing fabric. I think I have something that'll work in my stash. I went looking for 108-inch fabric in the Healing Waters fabric line for the backing, could not find it. And I don't want to piece the backing on this. So I think I have something that's going to work. So I will use that, and I'll get it layered. I'll get it onto Lucy, and then I've got to pick my quilting design. And I don't want something that's too dense. I just want something that is something symbolic, something that will add a little texture to the quilt, something that won't conflict with the busyness of the fabrics that I used in this quilt. And also I'll have to think about the color. And right now I'm thinking a very light gray. I could go with a very light blue though. So I'll guess I'll audition several different shades in the blue and the gray line for this and see which one I'll pick from that. And I'll be sure to show you the whole quilting procedure for this as well. Okay, so I took my quilt off of Lucy. I just quilted it. I didn't really film any of that because that can get kind of boring pretty quick. But I set it up on my computer on there to do a design. And the design I picked is kind of like a wavy, curly design. I thought that went with the theme of Healing Waters. And also it's not too dense, but it'll add some texture to the quilt. And also it's I did it in a very light gray because I didn't want it to compete with the busyness of the fabric. I just want to add some texture. So I've got my quilt laid out here on my cutting mat, and I'm going to show you how I square it up. Now you really do need to square up a quilt, and it's a bit of a pain in the butt, especially if you don't have a huge cutting area. I'm kind of lucky I have a fairly large one, but still it could be twice this size, which would make it ideal, but it's not. So what you want to do, if you don't square up your quilt, you have the risk of when you put your binding on it, you're going to have wonky binding. So it is a good idea to take the time to square it up. Now I've got my ruler here, and I've got a fairly big one. It's a 6-inch by 24-inch ruler, and it is actually a creative or a Quilter Select ruler. And these suckers, when they hit fabric, they don't move, which is a bit of a blessing and also a bit of a curse, as you can see. So how do I square this up? Well, I'm looking for a relatively straight line on the quilt. I don't just eyeball it here at the edge and take a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch off the side. I line up the closest number on my ruler to that inside seam that's running right along here and along here. And for this quilt, it's about 2 inches. So I'm going to line up the 2-inch line right along that, and I can see it in my ruler. And this quilt's already fairly straight, but I have a little overhang here of that border. So what you do is you push and pull your quilt to make it conform to that straight line. And that's what I like about this ruler, because it holds its place very well. But on the other hand, it does make it a little bit more difficult to manipulate the quilt underneath. Now, you do this and get it as accurate as you can. And then when you're happy with that, you take your rotary cutter and just slice off at the edge. Now you're going to have to do this probably depending. Oh my, lovely. I have a hole in the back of my quilt. I have to think about how I'm going to fix that. That must have happened. I had a little problem with Lucy today. I'm not going to get into the details about why, but at one point she dropped the needle, and that's why I have this hole, but it's pretty even, so I think I can probably sew it with some invisible thread and do my best job, which means hand sewing. Okay, wasn't expecting that. These things happen. Maybe that would be a good place to put a label. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I will. I have some ready-made labels that I had made on spoon flour some time ago. Oops, I just knocked something off the table. And, you know, it won't be actually down in the corner of the quilt. It'll be sort of in the middle. But, hey, it's a customization. Yeah. And no one sees the back anyways that much. So, yeah, that's what I think I will do. But first of all, we'll worry about that problem in a second, because I want to get this lined up and squared up. Okay. So you see, I'm just massaging the quilt to get it to cooperate. I mean, if you've been squaring up your blocks as you go, you probably won't have that much you have to cut off, and you probably won't be that hard to square up. However, if you have not been squaring as you go with your blocks, this part could be horrendous. So it's always a good idea to square your blocks. Okay, and it looks like I need one more strip from this side. I've done 2 of the 4 edges already of the quilt. And as I said, you don't want to rush this process. Actually, I don't really mind doing it in some ways. Once I get going with it, there's something satisfying about hacking off pieces of your quilt. Yeah, I said it. Okay, that looks good. Take another slice. You do want to have a really sharp rotary blade in your rotary cutter. Okay, and just a little bit more on the bottom here. Okay, there we go. That's all I took off. And that does another purpose too, besides squaring up your quilt. Your basting stitch will probably, if you've done it close enough to the edge, will come off as well, which is good because that means you won't have to worry about a basting stitch unless you pull it out by hand. And I don't, because when I do a basting stitch on Lucy, I don't change the stitch length. Now, some people do. I'm lazy. I don't bother. I use the same stitch length as I'm using in the actual quilting. So I make my basting stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the quilt, and it gets cut off. And if it doesn't get all cut off for some reason, probably whatever's left over, no problem there, whatever's left over will probably be hidden by your binding anyways, so you'll be okay. Okay, so, oops, sorry, hit the camera. So I'm doing pretty good. This is my last edge. And just get everything lined up. Now, if by chance I'm doing really long strips here, because as I said, my quilt is fairly square already, so there's not much I have to do in terms of adjustment. But if it was out by a lot and, you know, I kept tugging at it, I would do a shorter piece. If I'm doing a foot, a couple of feet, I would go to 6 inches, whatever, and then move my ruler down and do another 6 inches, etc. Rather than trying to manipulate the whole quilt under the ruler in big long chunks. Okay, this is my last cut. And that looks good. And there we go. Another little bit shaved off. And that's it. My quilt is now squared up. Now I can make my binding and put that on. And I will do a video of making the binding so you will see how I do it. So a few years ago, I went on a spoon flower and I uploaded my business card for the Idiot Quilter to it with the intent that I would make some labels using that logo. And this was the end result. So it's all printed on this fabric. This fabric does not fray. I don't know why. Maybe because this is printed onto the fabric. It didn't cost that much, probably about $20, $25 Canadian by the time we're done with shipping and everything. And I got a full meter of fabric with my labels, enough labels to last me forever. Also because I don't label very often. But today was a necessity because I had a hole. And so there's my label over the hole. Now, how did I stitch this down? I didn't stitch it down. I hate hand sewing. I use Steam-A-Seam 2. And Steam-A-Seam 2 claims that it'll stand up to being put in the washing machine. I don't know how often this quilt will even see a washing machine because it's more of a decorative type quilt than a utility quilt. But if by chance the label comes off, then I'll put another one on and I will attempt to hand sew it. Now I did think of using my invisible thread and sewing right through all the labels and putting this here. And you probably wouldn't really notice that there was something sewn on the back of here on the front of the quilt. But why bother take the chance right now? This is what I'm using right now, and I think that's going to work pretty good. So what's left to do? I need to make my binding fabric. Now, this is my backing color, and I have some of this fabric left over. And what I usually do with leftover backing fabric is that's usually what I make my binding out of for my quilt because I've already coordinated it. So if we take this and pretend this is binding and just put it here on the edge, take a look at what that looks like. Can you see that? Of course, you're seeing the other. Let's see if I can get a better spot where you might be able to see this a little bit more clearly. Okay, struggle, struggle, struggle. All right, here we go. This corner here, okay. My head's in the way of that. Put it up here, put it down here. Okay. Here is what I want to use for binding. And I could use a black fabric, but I think I'm just going to stick to that because then it hints at what's on the back of the quilt when you see it, and I think it blends in pretty good with it, with a little bit of contrast. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to get my AccuQuilt out, and I'm going to show you how I cut my binding strips. Okay, before I get the actual AccuQuilt machine out, I'm going to show you how I set up my fabric for cutting it. This is a 2.5-inch strip die. It will cut 3 strips, and I put the strips on here by the selvage edge along this line here. So I'm getting the full length of the fabric. Now I have estimated I need about 300 inches of binding fabric for this quilt. Actually, that's more than enough, but that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to position this piece right here, the center of the die, and I'm just doing a little bit of a finger press along this top and bottom area because I don't want a fold in that. And then I take my cutting mat and I put it right on top. Okay, now I need to get out my machine. Oh, before I do that though, you can cut up to 6 layers of fabric on this, but I already have 4 layers of fabric, I believe. Yeah, I was going to put this piece because I'm going to cut this as well. I was going to put this on top, but I'm not going to do that because I think I'll have a problem. This die, and I should have cleaned it out before I use it, may not cut all the way through. Just in a couple little spots, kind of like when you have a nick in your rotary blade. The reason being is there's probably some thread caught down in the grooves of the cutting bars. So I'm not going to worry about that. I can use my scissors just to clip it. But the reason I like using my AccuQuilt as opposed to my Stripology ruler is because when you use the Stripology ruler, I'm just trying to get this in the shot for you. If you're not careful, you can get a wow in your fabric. And I don't mean it wow as in wow, that's really cool. No, I mean as because it's made of plastic and there's those thin slits, they might give a little bit depending on how much pressure you put on your rotary cutter. So here's my AccuQuilt Go Big machine. You've seen this before on my site because I've been doing a whole, or have done by the time you see this video, a whole series of videos that show how to use the AccuQuilt. I've got my fabric on my die. I've got my cutting mat on. Turn on the machine and away we go. And I just like to support it a little bit when it comes out the other end. You can get a table for this as an optional extra, but mine I put away all the time. So yeah, that would be kind of cumbersome. I just take my hand and go around in little circles just to loosen it from the static of the cutting mat. And let's see how well we did. That one's good. These are waste, so we'll get rid of those. And here's a strip, and here's a strip, and here's a strip. It did a pretty good job of cutting it. These are each 2.5 inches long, and they are with the fabric. So, and since this was 108 fabric, they are measuring about, well, this particular piece of fabric wasn't quite long enough, but I've got 38 times 2, that's 76 inches. And I said, what did I want? About 150? Well, I don't think I'm going to have to cut that second piece of fabric because I have 3 strips. They're all 76 inches long. So what's that? 200. Let's see, 70 times 3 is 210. And another 12. Okay, math fails me. 210 plus 12 is 232 inches. And my quilt is about, being generous, I want 10 inches more. No, you want to know something? I'm going to cut one more strip. Yeah, just to be on the safe side, because I hate it, and it's happened, when you run out of strips. So I have another piece of fabric right here ready to go. So I'm just going to put it on here, straighten it up. Okay, fold that over, take it to the top. I don't have to be real fussy about how straight this is because there's that waste that comes off at the edge. So yeah, I'll get 2 strips out of this one. Just going to finger press down here at the seam so I don't get a wow. And put my cutting mat on top of this. And here we go again. Give it a little rub. Lift this up. Garbage. And this is also too small because I had it, yeah, that's only about 2¼ inch. I could save that for something else later. And my 2.5 inch strips. Okay. So I have 5 of those. That's well over 300 inches. So that's good. So what I'm going to do is clean up this, and I'm going to come back and show you how I join my binding strips together. So now I'm going to join all my strips together so I make one really long strip. I've done that already. This is what this pile is, but I'm going to show you my last one. So I have squared off the ends of this, and then I put one strip right side up, and I take the other strip right side down, and I line up the top edge and the side edge. And try to be as accurate as you can, but if you're not, you can clip off the dog ears that will result from this. Some people like to just basically not even bother but squaring up the ends, just take it about 1 inch or so over the edge of the bottom strip and line it up on this edge, and then you draw your diagonal line and cut it, and then cut off the dog ears later. I prefer straightening it before I do that. So now that I have these here, I'm going to draw a line diagonally from corner to corner. I'm just finding my corner. What I often do is I look under here and I mark where that corner is with a pencil, put my ruler at the other corner, and just draw a line. Now, you notice I use some clips. You could use pins. You want to keep it straight. I'll take it to my sewing machine and I will sew a straight stitch all the way down that line. Then when I bring it back to the table, take the clips off, I will use my ruler, find my 1/4 inch mark, and I will cut this piece, 1/4 inch line right along that drawn line, and just lop off that corner. You could free eye it and do it with just your scissors if you wish. It's up to you. I prefer doing this way because I think it makes things just a little neater, a little more accurate, but that's me. So once I have all the pairs of strips, then I will take those and attach them to each other using the same method. Some people like to just do it as a straight stitch. You can do that. The reason I do it this way is so I have less bulk in my seam when I'm using this as binding, because you are folding that binding over a couple of times. And so that can make a bit of a bulge when you go under your sewing machine needle. Now, and I also press open the joins. See if I can find one here to show you what I mean. Long piece. Here somewhere. Here we go. Okay. So here you can see I've just pressed that seam open. You can press it to the side if you wish, but that's going to create more bulk. So this is the only time really in most projects I do that I ever actually consciously press my seams open. So I'm going to take this piece over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew that last strip. I'm going to trim off the dog tail that's going to be there, or dog ear, and press it open. And then I'll show you how we fold it. And I have a little gizmo that does a really nice job of folding it in half and pressing it so you don't burn your fingers. Now, I've already got my binding started here. And the usual way for binding is you take your 2.5 inch strip and you just fold it in half, and I usually give it a little finger press, and then you take your iron, and this is not my usual ironing station here, but because I can't get the camera over by my regular one, I'm showing you here with this smaller iron. And so I just press it, making sure to keep the edges even, and then what you would do is go along and do the whole thing, the whole length of the strip. I found another way I like better. I have a tendency to burn my fingers when I'm doing this, trying to hold it down, especially if I hit the steam button on occasion, and I do. And yeah, that's not good. So I got this little device right here. And this is called I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a silicone pad. It has a couple of loops up here. And all you have to do is once you've started this, like I have, just tuck it in under each one of these little loops, straighten out your strip from one end, you put your iron on top of this, and you just pull it through. Now you'll see this thing's moving. Although it's silicone, when it's sitting on my wool pressing mat, and I do recommend having it on a pressing mat underneath it, because this, although the silicone won't melt, the mat will get really hot, and if you're on something like I'm on right now, my cutting mat, it could warp it. So we're not going to leave it there for long. But to get around that, I have one of those shelf liner pieces of webbing or whatever it's called, and I just put that underneath, and it stops this from moving. Now this whole pad might move a little bit because, as I said, this is not my usual sewing area, but for demonstration purposes. And then you just very slowly pull your binding through. Gently tug on it because you don't want to stretch your binding. Now I flattened out a fair amount of this to start with, but it almost naturally starts to fold, but you will have to adjust at times just to make sure. And you just keep going until you get to the end of your strip. So I've still got quite a bit left here to go. Oh yes, when you come to your fold, you may want it to sit under your iron for just a few seconds longer because that's a little thicker piece. And just keep guiding it with your fingers. Sometimes you have to move this over. Now, where do you get one of these things? Well, they sell them on Amazon. I got mine from a quilt store. At the time they came out, it was a pretty new product, and it cost me quite a bit. It cost me about $80. I ordered it online. Shipping was the thing that got me, even though it was a Canadian store, and the store was about 2 hours away from me. Still, I did that, so that made it cost more. But I've seen them usually on Amazon. I think they're about $30, $35, something like that. So yeah, I love it. I think it does a really good job. There was another thing that came out about a year ago. It looks like a clamshell. In my opinion, I did a review on it too back then. I forget exactly what it was called. Didn't work worth anything, and it was expensive too. So this is the method I prefer. Now, do you have to have something like this? No. You can just do it the conventional way, fold it over. But what I'm saying is, you'll notice I'm saving my fingers here from burning. So I don't think you need to see me doing the rest of this strip because I got quite a bit more to go. So I'll come back and show you how I store my binding before I actually use it and sew it to a quilt. So I thought I'd show you how I roll up my binding if I need to store it for any length of time. And there are different ways to do this. You can get those little, well, you just get a piece of cardboard or a toilet paper roll or something and wrap it around that. That's a cheap and efficient way. But a few years ago, I bought one of these things. And I actually ended up with two of them. I don't know how that was. But it is called the Easy Winding, get in the shot, Easy Binding Winder. Easy Binding Winder. And all it is, very simple concept. It's this, with a little round piece inside here. And this comes out. So you can remove, well, I'll show you that in a minute. There's a little clip inside of here. I don't know if you can see it. And you just take the end of your binding and just put it under that little clip. Okay, just like that. And there is a clamp for this. It won't fit on this table because this is not the table I usually use. It's my pressing table. It's a little not quite as thick. And this just adjusts, slides up and down, has a little thing to keep it from sliding around. It locks into place. It fits on the side over here where there's these holes, and away you go. But I'm going to do it here without clamping it down, but ideally you want to clamp it down because it gives a better grip. And once it's on there, you just turn the crank. And you can't see that, I know. Okay. See, it's wrapped around there. And I'm just, well, maybe I'll do it this way. It's not the way I usually do it, but for the sake of showing you, I just turn my crank. I'm standing on my binding. And okay. This is a little awkward. It's not usually this awkward if I had it on my regular table, but I can't get my camera over there. So you just, there we go. And you keep winding it until you have the whole thing wound up. Then all you do is this little part here on the end. You just push it in, and the center core, the handle, comes right out. You lift this off, and there's your binding. Now you can take it off the roll. I often do and put a clip in it, or you could leave it on here. It depends. Now it's a great way if you've got a lot of binding strips, left over in that, and you want to make them into some longer pieces. It's great for, just spending a few minutes winding them all up, putting a clip on them and storing them somewhere in a box or whatever so you can use them next time. But I love this little tool, and I don't know if it is still available or not, but you can look for it on Amazon or at your local quilt store or online somewhere. And again, it's called the Easy Binding Winder. And I forget what I paid for it.
wasn't bad. It's about $15, $16, I think, Canadian at the time. But I said I've had it for a long time, and I have two of them, and I use it all the time. I love it.
Okay, so that takes me to the end of today's episode. Just the reminder, sewing with me tomorrow, Wednesday, July the 1st. Links in the show notes. And advanced warning, but it's coming up fast. July the 11th, Saturday, July the 11th, I am having Stephen's Birthday Bash pop-up sew day. That's a mouthful. Yes, it will be my birthday. Well, actually, it's about 3 days before my birthday, but you get the idea. And we're going to have a special pop-up day, because on that day, there will be, because everybody likes to get gifts on their birthday, so I'm going to have prizes on my birthday for you. Not for all of you, just for the ones that win the various draws. Do you need to register for this? No, you do not. And it's a come and go, just like any other. But if you happen to be on here when I do a prize draw, well, that's a good thing, because you need to be here to win. But more details about that and the link for that will come out on next week's videos. Yes, next week's videos. Geez, time is going by really fast. And yeah, so happy Canada Day tomorrow to all the Canadians. And I guess the Americans are having their July the 4th on the weekend. So happy July the 4th as well. So we'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Hi, I'm just going to interrupt my program for just 1 second to remind you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for future notifications. That's all I ask of you. Show me a little love. Thanks.